Okay, welcome to a very special SeePurple podcast, Purple Pod number 10. 10? 10? Don't know how that's going to look. Anyway, special number 10 because not only is this just a 10 is a good milestone to hit, I feel like, but also I'm recording this podcast like my face and vibes are on screen. So that's just kind of different. We actually had a couple people request it. And by a couple, I mean two. One of them was my brother. But I'll do anything for the fans, all right? Plus, I've been wanting to record it. I just don't have a camera, so actually, like, my setup's super whack. But I'll let you know I'm in my parents' basement. Success, baby. This is just, like, some white fabric stapled up. We got, like, the boards right here of the wood. It's an unfinished basement. It's a lot uglier everywhere else. Here's the best looking spot. I'm recording on my iPhone. Shout out Apple, not sponsored, but whatever. And then we're on like a box. My phone's propped up on a box, propped up on ping pong paddles. And this is like a cabinet right here that is on facing this way. And I'm recording on the computer as well. We got the mic right here. So it's shoddy. It's not professional. We're low on funds at the SeePurple organization. We have none. Investors come through. But I'm here. My computer's right here with my notes as I talk. So hopefully I don't have to look down at a lot. But I'm here. I'm not that good looking of a guy, I'll be honest. But I feel like I wear cool hats. I got long hair. That makes it unique. So I hope everyone that's just listening, not watching on YouTube, is just imagining everything that's going on right now. If you want a better look at the setup, go hit the YouTube. But we're here. We're going to have a good pod. Of course, we have President Trump's tweets. Of course, we have a main story that hopefully I'm going to teach about mail-in voting and what's been going on there and the controversy that's all surrounding that. And then, of course, we have some purple vibes. Maybe talk about a little TikTok news. Hope you guys saw that. So it's going to be a good pod. It's number 10. We're recording. I'm here. I'm happy. If you know how the pod works, I ramble for about the first 2 minutes, and then we got that sick intro music. So we're going to hit that right now.
Audio Jungle.
Okay, just like preface, I'm recording this live on the camera. Not live, but in front of the camera. I'm not a video editor, and I'm just an amateur. I'm 21, right? I have a little bit of experience, so just like, take it easy on me if this just is a terrible production and humble beginnings. Okay, people, humble beginnings. That's all we got. Episode 10. But I'm here for it. I'm excited. So let's just get into it. If you're new to the pod, we always begin with President Trump's tweets, and I always go over them because, believe it or not, they're a pretty good indication on how he's feeling, how the country's feeling, if he's looking good and if he's looking bad, right? All these things. And he tweets so much, so often. You have so much to go over. And so they're always hard to find. But I always try to bring some that are funny, educational, controversial, whatever it may be, but that I can teach about, that we can learn about, whatever. That's kind of the whole goal. We just see purple. And so here we go. First one. Very disappointed in Senator Schumer, which I'm surprised he didn't use a mean nickname, because normally his enemies he's got nicknames for. Senator Schumer's one of the leaders of the Democratic Party, so you would think that he would have a genius nickname for him, but he doesn't, so interesting. Very disappointed in Senator Schumer for blocking the temporary extension of the $600 unemployment benefits. Here's the nickname, the do-nothing Democrats are more interested in playing politics than in helping our deserving people. Drain the swamp, all caps, drain the swamp on November 3rd. Interesting tweet. So if you refer to the last episode on the pod, I talked about the coronavirus bills, the differences between the Republicans' plan, the Democrats' plan. Very different, actually. Same concepts, but the Democrats wanted to continue the $600 through like March of 2021, which I hope we get to 2021 soon. Oh my gosh. The Republicans wanted it to be $200 continuing, because the Republicans didn't want people to live off that $600 and not want to go get their job back because they can just chill on the government. Both good necessary priorities. I get what they're both trying to do. Now, I do think that this tweet is kind of purposely stirring the pot, which President Trump does often, because I'm sure the Democrats, if that's in the bill, they definitely want the unemployment benefits starting now, right? The problem is there's such a rush because Congress is going to go out of session soon, which it happens periodically throughout the year. They'll go out of session for a couple weeks, come back. I'm sure the Democrats just wanted it to be safe and how they want it, but it's a game of politics, and you can slide things in bills that people forget about or don't realize. And so it's just classic. It's like a political thing. Stir the pot, blame it on the other people because they didn't want to push the Republicans' bill through. And this isn't the coronavirus bill. It's just they're voting on the unemployment benefits and how long to continue them. So it's just a game of politics. That's what we do. That's America right there for you. Drain the swamp on November 3rd. If you don't know what the term drain the swamp is, it's like the swamp is where a lot of bad things can just muster for a long time, and it only gets worse over time. That's kind of the concept, if you don't know what a swamp is, I guess. And so the term is applied to politics because politicians, the longer they're in the swamp, or like D.C. in politics, in the Senate, whatever, they just get more corrupt and evil because they're motivated by money more. That's just the game of politics, especially in America. And so President Trump has been saying it, campaigning on it for a long time, drain the swamp. That's one of his priorities. So that's the first tweet. I hope that was insightful. Second tweet threw me for a loop. Very interesting indeed. We'll talk about it. So backstory on President Trump, you know it, I'm sure, comes from a lot of money. Real estate in New York, that's kind of where they made their wealth. His family, his dad. President Trump then started his own company. He's built his own empire of his own. So they've been millionaires. I don't know if they're billionaires, possibly. Correct me if I'm wrong. Don't know. But a lot of millions, I know for sure, in that family. That's being passed down, and they're doing a lot of things, right? So they're in the 1% for sure. So Business Insider posted this video, and the caption of this tweet is, while 40 million Americans filed for unemployment during the coronavirus pandemic, billionaires saw their net worth increase by $500 billion, which, if my math is correct, is $500 billion. So, and $1 billion's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. Way different than $1 million, that's for sure. So, and it's actually this graph showing the increase in how, like, all these billionaires, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, how much they're, like, I think Jeff Bezos has made $50 billion in the pandemic. Elon Musk has made about $18 billion, right? That's so much money, while 40 million Americans have filed for unemployment, right? So it was this graph showing this massive wealth disparity, basically, between how the pandemic is affecting people. So President Trump quoted it, and he says this: "I actually agree with this. Too much income disparity. Changes must be made, and soon!" Exclamation point. So, very interesting. The conservative way of life economically is they believe in trickle-down economics most of the time, and they also believe in capitalism, the free market. The free market decides who gets rich, and those rich people employ more people, and the economy keeps going. We constantly innovate. We constantly have more people employed, more jobs, more money, more GDP to go spend and go innovate and manufacture, whatever. It's kind of synopsis. I've talked about capitalism before. And also trickle-down economics is when you cut taxes for the wealthy and for these huge companies, and so they have more money to play with, so they innovate more, they hire more, things like that, and it trickles down. And so people on the bottom are hired. They have cooler products that do more for them because of the innovation, whatever. So it's kind of like the mindset of conservatives and Republican Party. And so this tweet kind of goes against that a little bit, right? So he says, I agree with this. This wealth disparity, there's too much income disparity. So changes need to be made and soon. So I don't know what he intends changes to be made and soon, what that entails. But changes must be made. So a lot of the Democratic nominees in all the Democratic debates, if you watched any, I watched several, all talked about basically taxing the billionaires more and some of the millionaires more, right? If you make more money, you can just get away with more, right? You don't have to, sometimes you can get away with not paying taxes. Your companies maybe don't pay taxes to the American government. And so I know like Elizabeth Warren, who's the nominee for president, had this really unique plan to tax billionaires and to have a wealth tax, all these things. And so that's like a possible idea that President Trump could be playing with. I don't see that being popular. I don't know what he's planning on or thinking at all, but whatever he does, it would probably affect him too because of all of his millions. So I thought that was super interesting and unexpected from a guy that's all about money, always has been about money, success, the art of the deal, etc., etc. So I guess we'll see what his thoughts are and how that plays, and if his Republicans will support that as well. But let's move on to the main story. Let's go. Okay, on to the main story. I wasn't really sure what to do actually for the main story, but luckily it's always hard to find something that can't really be refuted. It's a good story that I can teach about, that we can learn about, that's happening, current events, that's going to be important if you have political discussions close to the election, whatever it may be. So today we're going to talk about like mail-in voting and the controversy of that. So if you follow President Trump on Twitter, if you follow kind of news, a lot of people are thinking about doing mail-in voting. A lot of states are thinking about doing mail-in voting because of the coronavirus, right? The pandemic hasn't been handled as well as we wanted, probably. I think most Americans would agree with that. And so the enticement of people going to line up at voting polls and voting ballot stations for hours and hours to go vote while risking your health potentially isn't very appealing. So a lot of states already had, not a lot, a few already have all mail-in voting. I live in Utah right now, and Utah is actually one of them. We'll talk about that later. California and Vermont have already come out and said that they're doing mail-in voting for their states. And there's one guy that's very angry about that, and it's President Trump. I haven't seen many anger from Republican senators, but him especially, he's very angry about it. He thinks that it's super dangerous to do it because it can lead to more fraud. So, and that's a logical statement, right? You're dealing with people mailing in their information, the U.S. Postal Service handling that, making sure it gets to the people in time, making sure they vote it in time, right? What if your address is wrong? It's going to get sent to the wrong person. I get all the necessary worries about it. Now, almost every polling and election experts say that it's not a very high fraudulent rate. Now, fraud, regardless, is bad, right? If I'm an American politician, if I'm the president and I'm running for re-election, I want the least amount of fraud as possible. If you want to see his kind of feelings on it, you can go check his tweets. So I get the worries of it, but also there are states that do it all the time that don't have any problems with it, and Utah is one of them. They don't have very high fraud rates at all. So my theory behind why he's so worried about this, to be honest, is one, if he loses the election, which I would say that he's pretty worried about it, and that's not like a biased opinion. That's me looking at his tweets and what he's saying, and it kind of seems like he's frantic a little bit, but that's how he just is, I guess. Anyway, I think it's nice because if President Trump does lose, he can say, it's because we did mail-in voting. I warned you about this. It's fraudulent. Who would want Joe Biden? I'm supposed to win. The polls had me winning, and mail-in voting caused this, right? That's one I think that he's doing. Also, like, to stereotype, because that's what politics is, baby, conservatives have been less afraid of the coronavirus in a couple ways. They want the economy open back up sooner. They don't want their constitutional rights taken away more because of like masks, things like that. They're tired of the government being involved, which is the conservative values, what they do. So I think President Trump thinks that if it's in-person voting, one group of people, the Republicans that love him or tolerate him and vote for him, aren't going to be afraid to go vote, whereas the Democrats have been more precautious with coronavirus, not wanting to open up schools as much, not wanting to open up business as much, aren't going to be as inclined to go vote. So if he can eliminate any mail-in voting and everyone's going to the polls, he knows that the Republicans are going to come out and they're going to vote, and the Democrats are probably going to be a little bit afraid to vote. So that's probably his theories behind it, and that's also like notoriously the stereotype as well as Republicans and Democrats. A lot of political people will say that most people in the country are probably more Democrat-leaning, but the Republicans are more convicted to go out and vote and to go act on their political leanings. So that's just kind of also what he's thinking about. But also there's a thing called voter suppression, and I don't know too much about it. This is my understanding about it, and I don't know if it's too controversial, but there are just people in low-income areas that are mostly, and sometimes in low-income areas, are minorities that have less opportunities, that they are working constantly, or they're going to school constantly, or they're doing things constantly where they, if going to vote takes 8 hours because it's in person, they can't just have the luxury to take off a day at their job, money that can be made to helping their financial situation, to go vote. And this happens with white people as well. But it's a big concern, voter suppression. And so that's also something that has to be thought about. We saw it kind of happen in actually the primaries, that people waited 8 hours in line to go vote and sometimes couldn't even go vote because the ballot's closed. And so all those are just kind of necessary things that he's worried about. Okay, let's get into it more. So Nevada on Sunday night, I think it was like in the middle of the morning actually, which is a strategic move that politicians do so that people don't really know about it as much. They passed a bill in the late night that said Nevada's going to send in mail-in ballots to every voter ahead of the election, the general election for president, so that they can vote mail-in. And just to define what's different, there's absentee voting and there's mail-in voting. Absentee voting means, hey, I'm not going to go to the polls, or I'm living in a different state, but I'm registered in Utah. Send me a ballot and I'll vote that way, and I'll vote that way. So it's when the voter requests the mail-in ballot. That's absentee voting. Mail-in voting, or state mail-in voting, is when the state is just going to send everyone a ballot, and then they can fill it out, turn it in. So that's a little bit different. A little education for you. And so basically they passed this, and then of course we had a string of tweets from President Trump. He said that, quote, it was a late night coup, which is like a strategy to overtake, right, whatever. I don't really know the definition. Hope you know what that means. And then they're also using, quote, COVID to steal the state, comma, see you in court, end comma. President Trump tweets this a lot, see you in court, thinking that things aren't legal, whatever. So he was upset. He thinks that they're leveraging the coronavirus to win the elections because, like I said earlier, he's worried that the Democrats will come out and vote if it's mail-in voting, and that Democrats are gonna strategize to fraudulent the vote to win the election. It's a political game. Any of that could happen. I don't think it will. I think he's just worried about losing personally. So I get his worries. I get his hysteria. And if anyone's going against him, he's going to call them out. So he calls them out. Steve Sisolak is the Democratic governor of Nevada, and he'll likely sign this into effect so that Nevada will send everyone these ballots. Just for context, Utah, Colorado, Hawaii, Oregon, and Washington all already do it. Now, also, if you're President Trump, to play devil's advocate, if you're looking at Colorado, Hawaii, Oregon, and Washington, those are four primarily Democratic states that vote blue almost every election. Utah's not. They always vote red. So there have been, like, Senator Romney, Mitt Romney, for example, has come out and said that, like, Utah votes Republican, President Trump, and they do mail-in voting, so, like, you don't need to worry. But if he sees, right, Hawaii, Oregon, Colorado, Washington, I can see why he's worried. To add to that, Vermont and California have switched to do mail-in voting for this year's election. So, if you're based on stereotypes and a blue state versus a red state, yeah, I can see his worry. Now, there's three problems, three kind of things I'll call out that I find with this. Number one is that coronavirus has had a huge effect on the United States Postal Service. Now, it is funded by the government, right? It's a government entity, but government's running out of money, and so there have actually been worries that the United States Postal Service might go out of business, or that they're going to defund it, which are things that can't happen. So some people are theorizing that President Trump's going to not defund it, but not give them more money, so then they can't handle the mail-in voting, and so that he gets his way. I don't think that'll happen. I think that's a pretty bold theory, personally. I don't think he could do it anyway. So that's one kind of problem. Two is that since this is politics and it's all shady and everyone's here for power and money, there have been Democrats in the past, like a decade ago, that have said that mail-in voting is fraudulent and that we should avoid it at all costs. Now, I do think that's a long time ago, right? Things have changed. We probably have better technologies, whatever. But it's just funny that the Democrats can use a narrative that they've been against in the past, or they've been pro in the past for non-mail-in voting, and now they're against it because you know who, Mr. Trump, is pro mail-in voting. So that's just the game of politics. That's it right there. I mean, that's what they do. And if they're going to use it to fight their narrative, they're going to do it. The Republicans would do the exact same thing if they're in the exact same position. That's just how it is. And the third thing I think is funny is that President Trump has voted mail-in before, and I think multiple times. And so he's so against it, even though he's done in the past. Welcome to a world of hypocrites. American politics, baby. So I just think it's funny. I hope that those helped and kind of pointed out that this is just a political issue, and they're both going to use it to both try to win the election. That's just how it is. There's going to be science and statistics that it's not fraudulent. I'm sure the Democrats find. I'm sure if the Republicans really dug up, they could find statistics and evidence that it isn't good and that it is fraudulent. And that's it. So just do whatever, just take it all with a grain of salt. It's politics. And to also illustrate, Nevada did this. They did mail-in voting in the June primary elections for people in their local offices and the nominees for the Democratic and Republican parties for president. So it's not like this is all brand new and they're not, they're just pulling this out of their back pocket. They did this in June. They're voting on it again for the primaries. If it was satisfactory in June, it should be satisfactory for the primaries. Obviously, there's going to be opposers against that. And so that's it. I just think it's really interesting. I think it's cool that Utah is very unique because President Trump's worried about these Democratic states doing mail-in voting. Utah's a Republican state. It's always a red state. Always will be for some time, I'm sure. And so if he looks at Utah, he should find some comfort that people are just going to vote how they want to vote, and that mail-in versus in-person isn't going to work. I'll let you know. I'm voting mail-in because that's what my state's doing. Look up what your state's plan is. I'm sure they're going to be making decisions soon because it's not going to be easy just to get those ballots. But that's kind of the main story. I thought that was educational. I thought that was really interesting. Look out for these things. Look out for politicians passing things late at night. Look out for politicians doing things to look out for themselves and their own winnings and money and power. Look out for politicians that say one thing is bad years ago, and now that it's going to be in their favor to say it's good, they're going to do it right. Welcome. We see purple here, and I hope that was a good story that helped educate. Okay, if you guys are new here, we always end the podcast with some purple vibes. As you know, SeePurple, we try to promote thinking on both sides, understanding both sides, having empathy for both sides, but also like promoting the good news of politics. Politics is problem solving. I say that all the time. It's kind of like my main thing. And there are so many ways to solve a problem. And so you need to hear everyone out to how they solve the problem and what's going to work and what's worked in the past. So Purple Vibes always try to bring like some just good news that's happening in the political world. Sometimes it's super hard to find. Most of the time, it's super hard to find. That's just American politics. I've said that so much. I hope that's not putting a downer on American politics for you guys. I think there's a lot of potential for our politics to be incredible. We just got to work at it. We just got to see purple. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying I'm the solution to everything. But, okay. So, I try to bring in the purple vibes. I try to end on a good note. I try to help people see purple, see what's going on in the world. You might have missed it because media only covers things that are controversial and against the other party. There you go. So to start, TikTok. I was ready for August to be just another terrible month of 2020 because of everything that's going on. I hear TikTok's getting banned from President Trump. I'm actually not on TikTok a lot. I'm hoping SeePurple will be on there soon, though. President Trump came out and said because it's China, which we got a vendetta against, of course. They're like our main competitor. They started the virus, right? Whatever. I guess I keep doing quotes on my fingers, and I realize the people that don't watch this aren't going to know when I'm doing it. I hope you guys know, though. I've done it like 4 times. Just try to imagine. Whatever. All right, we're going. TikTok, China. Apple found out that they're stealing data off iPhones. If you don't know, social media, you're basically giving up your data to companies to go sell, right? So Apple, Facebook, Microsoft, Amazon, Target, Walmart, they know everything about you. They know your habits, whatever. They know how old you are. They know where you live. They know how much money you make. All of that. I feel like that was a common fact. But, so, it's kind of funny. There have been some memes that's like, when U.S. corporations steal your data, good. when a Chinese company steals your data, bad. Like, it's stealing data no matter what. President Trump came out, said that we're going to ban TikTok in the United States. It's not safe for Americans to be using. They're spying on us, whatever. Then Microsoft came out basically the next day. This was the saving grace of the month, and said that we're willing to buy certain stakes in TikTok. I believe it's Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the United States. I think they want to buy like the data and the company in those regions. And so Microsoft's looking to buy it. Microsoft already owns LinkedIn, which is like kind of business social media. And so now they'll have TikTok under the repertoire. So they'll have like old, kind of more business professionals, and they're going to have young Zoomers that dance and clap. I just clapped and danced on the camera for those that are just listening. So what's this going to happen? So I think they're going to do it. President Trump gave him 45 days to make the deal happen. I think that puts him in like September, early mid-September. President Trump, though, came out and said and told Microsoft that the U.S. Treasury better get a cut of the deal because this deal wouldn't be happening if it wasn't for Trump, because he was just going to ban it. Now that he's giving Microsoft this opportunity. So interesting. He's just that guy. I don't know. He just is like that. So we'll see, I guess. So that was just kind of like precursor. TikTok's back. It's here to stay. Keep learning those dances. Renegade, whatever. But for the kind of more purple vibes, this is actually like very purple. So I'll preface Mitt Romney. I like him a lot. One, because he's my U.S. senator. He's a senator in Utah. Two, because of politics and how polarizing there are not a lot of people that stand up for their party against President Trump or against the Democrats, Pelosi and Schumer, Senator Pelosi and Senator Schumer. Because if they go against the tide, if they cut against the grain, then they might not get reelected. And that's all politicians care about, to get reelected, to get more money, to get more power, to get more fame. Da-da-da-da. That's American politics. I've said it for the 5th time. Mitt Romney, though, has, even before he got elected in Utah, he would tweet kind of against President Trump and a lot of things he does. Mitt Romney's a staunch Republican. Had the Republican nomination to run against Obama in 2012 even, right? So tried and trusted Republican, but will go against President Trump because he thinks that he's not as moral of a man, personally. He personally thinks that. But also just thinks that sometimes he doesn't do things that support the party. He does things that support his beliefs and ideals. That's kind of what he's been about. For example, he was the only Republican that voted against President Trump's impeachment, which kind of shocked the world. And so in Utah, I'll tell you, just being on the ground floor and talking politics a lot, because that's what I like and that's kind of my job, people either hate him or love him. And it's basically if you love or hate President Trump, right? So if you love President Trump and you're a Utahn, you think Romney's a coward and that he's just doing it for political gain because maybe he wants to run again, whatever. And if you don't like President Trump, they think he's a hero, right? Because he voted against the biggest figure in his party's history, or not history, but current history, because of what he believed in. Now, to me, as someone that sees purple, Senator Romney didn't care about going with the flow and doing what everyone else was doing. He went, cut the grain, he saw purple, and that's how he's been voting, and that's how he's become President Trump's number one enemy, essentially. Number one Republican enemy, 100%. So that's kind of how he is. But, so Mitt Romney can kind of look on the other side of the aisle, it seems like, in his past. That's what he's done. So I thought this was super cool. This was reported on. So like I said in the last pod, right, the Democrats and the Republicans are fighting over the stimulus payments. And also I said earlier that Republicans don't want it to be so expensive, the 600 payments, because they don't want people to be, they want people to be incentivized to go get their jobs back, right? 40 million unemployed. There are jobs that need to go get taken back. There needs to be money flooding the economy again, people buying things, right? That's just that's just the economy. That's capitalism. And so they want that. The Democrats, though, have been saying, no, let's just give them 600 a month. Like, it's crazy. The world's crazy. It says, we've never seen this pandemic before. We are Congress. We can make this quick. Just give them 600 a month till March, right? So Republicans are like, no, because they're not going to go get their jobs back. Democrats are like, well, they need this. Even if they get their jobs back, 600 is not enough. That's just basic politics. That's what they want. So the Democrats wanted 600 a month. The Republicans, like I said last pod, want $200 a month. And that's not enough. And 600 probably is enough, but it doesn't incentivize. So Mitt Romney came up with this plan, and it's got like 2 solutions to it that are kind of purple and that both can work on. One of them is that the government can provide extra payments for $500 a week in August, $400 a week in September, $300 a week in October, right? So now they're still making enough money, but they're more incentivized. Like, oh, shoot, I only got $400 this month. I need $200 more. I got to go back to my job, right? So that they still are getting money, but they're more incentivized to go get a job, which I thought was very creative and probably what we should be doing. That's a very purple policy, purple solution, a purple way to solve the problem instead of barely any money and let's give them a lot of money, right? Think that way. Be like Mitt. And then the other option, which I don't really understand too much because it's just confusing, I guess. But he said the other option would be to provide total state and federal benefits that are 80% wage replacement. So I'm assuming that the government would just pay 80% of their wages and their benefits, and then they go get the job. I'm assuming that's an option because it's probably cheaper, I would guess. Anyway, but those were his 2 options. He also had the idea to give $2 billion for states to go fund their own unemployment and help them do that way, and kind of flexibility money to play with. So that was super interesting. Mitt Romney said this: unemployed workers should not be left at limbo while Congress continues to negotiate the next relief package. So Mitt wants this to be out of the relief bills and let's just pass this purple bill, basically, where it's 500 and it dwindles down, so they are still have enough money, but they are incentivized to go get the job. Best of both worlds. He says we should act with urgency to help millions of Americans who are on the verge of losing these additional benefits. And actually, Susan Collins, which is another Republican senator, has agreed with this plan and thinks that they should push it forward. So I just thought that was cool. Give you a little insight onto what's happening in the Senate and how things are crazy and how everyone's fighting over who's going to win, Republicans or Democrats. But there are a couple senators that can see the purple, that can make legislation that's purple, and are going to try to get that passed. I'm really interested to see what's going to happen. You know I will update you. That's what we do on the pod. It's been a pleasure. That's kind of the end of the pod. It's been a pleasure. I've been on screen. I feel like I'm not as suave on the screen as maybe I am on the mic. Let me know. But it's been great. I'm excited. I hope I can record most of these podcasts now, and that we can just see further purple. So I hope you guys have a great week. Episode 11 comes next. We'll probably have a special guest. Don't quote me on that, but that's the plan. We're going to have a special guest for that and have a really cool conversation. All right. Peace.